Following the liberation of Andriyivka, Ukraine's defense forces have begun assault operations toward the village of Yunakivka in the Sumy region. Oleksandr Syrsky, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, highlighted the offensive during a press meeting that Militarny's correspondent attended. Over the course of a week, Ukrainian units advanced between 200 and 700 meters, depending on the area, forcing Russian forces from their positions. According to the Deep State Military Analysis website, about a third of Yunakivka currently remains in the gray zone, an area marked by active combat or contested control. Russian tactics in the region, which rely heavily on small assault groups without armored support, enabled Ukraine's counterattack. Despite this, Ukrainian forces have made gains. In early June, the 225th Separate Assault Regiment reclaimed the village of Andriyivka, located roughly 5 kilometers from the Russian border in the Sumy region. On June 13th, one day before Andriyivka was officially declared liberated, Volodymyr Bitsak, deputy chairman of the Sumy Regional Council, reported that Russian offensive operations had been halted and that Ukrainian forces had begun to push back. Shortly afterward, the 225th Regiment's press service published a photo of documents belonging to a Russian major, Andriy Yartsev, born in 1974. Yartsev, who was killed in the fighting, served as battalion commander of the 30th Motorized Rifle Regiment of the Russian Federation, which operated in this sector. Ukraine's Special Operations Forces are also contributing to the offensive, conducting sabotage and reconnaissance missions behind enemy lines. In early June, Ukrainian special forces in the Sumy region destroyed a Russian group preparing for an assault. Despite recent progress, the situation in the area remains challenging. Deep State analysts report intense fighting along the Novomykolaiivka, Varachine, Yablunivka, Yunakivka axis, where Russian forces are attempting to secure and fortify their positions. Particular attention should be paid to the area around Lochnia, where Russian forces are trying to advance east of the village and entrench themselves in the forested terrain towards Sadki. If they manage to hold that ground, dislodging them could prove extremely difficult, analysts warn. A Russian missile strike targeted a training ground used by one of the mechanized brigades of the Ukrainian ground forces on June 22nd, according to the ground forces press service. The attack took place during a training session. While the timely implementation of safety protocols after an air raid alert helped prevent mass casualties, 3 personnel were killed and 11 were wounded as of 17:27 local time. The wounded are receiving medical treatment at healthcare facilities, the statement said. We express our sincere condolences to the families and relatives of the deceased servicemen, the ground forces added. The ground forces command formed a special commission to investigate the incident. Law enforcement officials are working at the site. In response, additional security measures are being introduced to protect personnel in the event of future missile or airstrikes. Ukrainian defense forces have struck 2 Russian radar systems, a Zoopark counter-battery radar and a Buk M3 air defense radar, using FPV drones. Ukrainian military units released footage of the strikes. According to the 14th Unmanned Aerial Vehicle Regiment of the Unmanned Systems Forces, their operators hit the 9 S-36M Viking radar station, part of the Buk M3 system, using 2 FPV drones. The damage reportedly disabled both the radar's operation and its mobility. Separately, the UA-Reg team unit reported the destruction of a Russian 1 L219 Zoopark counter-battery radar. In a video shared on its Telegram channel, an FPV drone is shown striking the antenna array of the Zoopark system during deployment. The strike likely rendered the system inoperable, requiring complete replacement of its radar components. According to open-source tracking by the Oryx OSINT project, Russia has lost at least 24 1L219/1L261 Zoopark radar reconnaissance systems to date. Losses of the 9 S-36M Viking radar, a low-altitude target acquisition component of the Buk system, now total 11 units, 6 from Buk M2 batteries and 5 from Buk M3 systems. Ukrainian fighters train with MRAP Max Pro drop-offs, equipped with extensive anti-drone protection. By mid-2025, Ukraine has received around 440 Max Pro MRAPs, mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles. The United States supplied the majority, about 240 vehicles, starting with 40 in August 2022 and 2 more batches later that year. In 2023, Albania contributed an additional 22 vehicles, and other allied nations filled the ranks to reach the total. These rugged MRAPs are now playing a key role in frontline operations, safely transporting troops, evacuating the wounded, protecting supply convoys, and safeguarding logistics in areas threatened by mines, artillery, and ambushes. Russian propagandists are now claiming that a non-nuclear version of the Iranian scenario is being applied to Russia, conveniently forgetting once again that they were the ones who started this war. They just happened to fail. As always, they're calling for others to fight to the last Russian, just not themselves, but their confidence seems a bit rattled. Yes, of course, and Trump is a peacemaker, and the West is a partner. All these are fairy tales for adults. We can see one of the war scenarios prepared for us. These are not scare stories. This is reality. Only nuclear weapons of retaliation will save us here. In Ukraine, we see another scenario of reprisals against Russia, a non-nuclear one. It is not for nothing that Vladimir Putin recently announced a significant strengthening of our ground forces. I am sure they mean the ground forces and everything that ensures their combat activities. But, unfortunately, without space, without the sea and the sky, the ground forces cannot be truly strong. Numerous and armed, yes, truly strong, no. Therefore, the harmonious development of all the RF armed forces is inevitable. Expensive? Yes. But cheaper than war. Much cheaper than waging war. I am not even talking about the destruction of our country. If we allow an attack on us, how much will it cost to restore it? I am sure of myself. My people are waiting for great work, great development in the peaceful economy. But, old man Lenin said, and we, after 1991, laughed at him, every revolution is only worth something if it knows how to defend itself. Today, we have raised a revolution against the despotism of the West. If we stand firm, we will survive. No, we will be like the Iranians, Iraqis, Serbs, Syrians, Palestinians, Libyans, how many of you are there? Under the ruins. Today, we have everything to survive. The main thing is not to let ourselves be blown up from within. Russia launched a massive overnight strike on Kremenchuk-Poltava region. Around 50 explosions were heard. Energy infrastructure, including a refinery, was damaged. Fragments with metal ball bearings are being found across the city. Russia hit Kremenchuk with cluster munitions, aiming to cause maximum civilian harm. Strikes targeted energy facilities. Some submunitions, shaped like toys, pose a serious risk to children. Fragments with metal balls up to 10 centimeters wide were also found at the scene. Putin, now emboldened by Trump's backing and open support, demands Ukraine recognize the so-called referendums in occupied territories. He warns that ignoring them could lead to renewed conflict. He also calls for Ukrainian neutrality and protection of Russian-speaking and pro-Russian residents.
I would like to ask you first, what is the politically acceptable solution for Russia in the Ukrainian crisis?
During the meeting, I said it is necessary for Ukraine to return to the path it diverged from, which is declaring its independence. That is, Ukraine should be neutral, outside any alliance, and non-nuclear. After that, we move forward based on the will of the people living on these lands and the recognition of these lands, because this is what we call democracy. In this context, I say it is necessary for Ukraine to recognize the results of the referendums conducted in the 4 known regions. It is essential to acknowledge this as a reality, because not doing so would mean there are opportunities for resuming armed conflict. And I am certain that the Ukrainian people and the majority of the Ukrainian people are interested in maintaining friendly and amicable relations with Russia in the long term. It is necessary to denazify Ukraine and ensure that Nazi elements do not remain in the Ukrainian leadership. And without a doubt, it is necessary to resolve issues related to humanitarian matters, which concern the Russian language and the legitimate demands of people who want to develop and strengthen relations with Russia in Ukraine. There are some issues that must be settled. But all these issues were discussed in Istanbul in the year 2022, and I want to stress and point out once again that we were on the verge of an agreement in the year 2022, and I hope that the Ukrainian leadership will follow the national interests of the country and not the interests of third parties behind the regime in Ukraine.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.